You've got the toughest job in. I'm not going to blow smoke up your bottom, but I think that moment.
You'd have to have a lot of smoke.
Yes, quite
a big
well.
one.
Well, I think that moment immediately after a football match, when the adrenaline is still high. If you ask, well, we all ask the "how does it feel" question because that's an opening gambit to get a response. You ask more pointed questions than that often, and sometimes the answers aren't terribly coherent, and sometimes they're great television. But it's instant, and there's no time for reflection. And I think you do a good job. The Ivanovic thing was great television.
Yeah. It wasn't. I'll tell you why I disagree with you, Mick, because it was uncomfortable, and the golden rule of television, or one of the golden rules, is never to make the viewer feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
Now that definitely was the case from some of the stuff I've read, some of the stuff I've seen. But let me just take you through it as to what actually happened, because it's I'm not going to say easy to criticise, because people are entitled to criticise, but if people understand what went on and as to why the circumstances and how it happened, then I think perhaps there'll be a little more understanding. So if you bear with me, first of all, we didn't ask for Branislav, although we're delighted to get any player. It was fantastic scenes in the tunnel, great joy, whooping and singing and dancing. I have to tell you as well, John Terry was at the very centre of it, no sulking whatsoever on his part. Nobody, and that can't have been easy for him. So I'm stood by the board, and I'm actually wired to the spot virtually, and 3 players were presented to us by, I think it was the UEFA team delegates who are called team. So I don't have a choice. Now, I already had a query on my notes as to whether or not Branislav had been booked, because I genuinely didn't know, and neither did our broadcast team, because it was unclear as to whether or not he had been booked. So as soon as he arrived, I knew there was a situation I had to clarify, because I couldn't say, fantastic, lads, are you looking forward to a night in Munich, if he leant forward and said, well, actually, Geoff, I'm not playing, because it would have made us look ridiculous. So the first thing I had to do was actually clarify as to whether or not he had been booked. Now, once he said he's been booked, I've got nowhere to go other than to say, well, unfortunately, that means that you missed the final. You know that, don't you? Now, again, the next part, the cog in the work, if you like, was he, because Branislav's English isn't the best, he's just played a fantastic part of the emotional game, and he's coming to terms with being booked, and he wasn't actually sure whether or not he was on a yellow card. He said, yes, I don't know. He clearly wasn't clear.
So you've got to clear it up for the viewer, haven't you, Geoff?
Yeah, so I've got to clear it up, which is, listen, if we had our time again, he simply wouldn't have been there. Simple as that. I wouldn't want to share his pain with everybody. But
so listen, that's fine. That's why you've got to do it, Geoff. You're in the firing line. That's but at least people understand it now.
There's the only thing that cheeses you off slightly is the idea that I would deliberately, and some of your fellow journalists seem to have the idea that I would deliberately trying to goad him into crying live on television in a Jeremy Kyle type fashion. Now, Mick,
they're going to give you a series.
Do you honestly think you would last 5 minutes in the tunnel if that was your style?
Listen, Geoff, go down that route, you might end up with a really trashy primetime ITV chat show. You'd be fine, mate. Listen, thanks for calling us in. I'm running out of time, and you know where I'm going with that.
Guys, as ever, a great listen. Keep up.